Hey guys, welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. Yeah, welcome back. Tonight we've got Jade, who's Scottish and sober on Instagram. I've been following Jade since about 2021, so right in the deep thick of COVIDian times. And yeah, it was just so nice to see another Scottish face pop up on Instagram, on sober Instagram. So yeah, she was definitely one of the ones that I wanted to get on the podcast right from the beginning. So I'm so glad that she gave up her time to come and speak to me. So we had discussions about, kind of her drinking, her working in the oil and gas industry up in Aberdeen in Scotland, and just, Jade's a bit younger than me, but we did grow up in a similar area where, taking people out to business meetings and going out to meals and things like that, alcohol was always involved. I think people are trying to steer a wee bit away from that now because it just gets messy, and I think companies have got a bit more of a kind of responsibility towards their employees now, so they kind of I hope they're starting to steer clear. But back in the kind of 90s and early noughties, when Jade was starting out in her career, it was just the norm to go out and booze and schmooze people to get business deals or for whatever reason. But that was always what was used to kind of grease the wheels in business meetings. So yeah, we spoke about that. We also spoke about kind of young people's drinking and how we're hoping that the kind of their habits are kind of shifting. So it's it's a good discussion about that. Really enjoyed having a chat with Jade. As I say, it was the first time we'd kind of really sat down and spoken about it. But we had so many similarities in our kind of early days of drinking as well, and it's just a really, really good conversation. So sit back, pop your headphones on, and listen for the similarities and not the differences. Cheers, guys. See you at the end. Bye bye. Hi, Jade. Welcome to After Hours. I'm so sorry to drag you in out of the sunshine. I'm looking in the background there. It looks absolutely beautiful. Are you up in Aberdeen?
I am. Yeah. Hi, Jimmy. Yeah, it's absolutely glorious. I think we've had about 5 or 6 days of sunshine, which is literally unheard of in the northeast of Scotland. So I
Well,
am
as much as I
making the
hate the
most
word,
of
it's
it.
unprecedented. I mean, we've had, I don't know, I can't remember the last day rain we had. I'm on the Isle of Man, so it's kind of,
Oh, right. Okay.
our weather system isn't exactly too much different from Scotland. It's probably a bit milder, but we get a lot of rain as well with it being an island. So
You'll
yeah,
feel
have you
right
done
at
it?
home then.
Well, exactly, yeah. So, were you born and raised in Aberdeen?
I was, yeah, just outskirts of Aberdeen. But yeah, I've lived here my whole life. So yeah, born and bred.
So my grandfather was from Stonehaven,
Oh, right.
so
Gosh, well, I
south.
grew up just north of there in
Right.
Newton
Well,
Hill, a
so then
little
I
fishing
I
village.
moved up with my stepdad and mum when I think I was about 17, 18. Went to college, and we lived in a place called, not Portlethen. What's the one just before it?
Newton Hill.
Newton Hill. Yeah, I lived in Newton Hill.
That is literally where I'm from, Jimmy.
Really?
Yeah, that's where I grew up. I went to
Wow.
Newton Primary.
Wow, that's mad. So you
I can't
probably,
believe that.
do you know Angie? I shouldn't say names on here. But yeah, some of my friends when I lived there. So we lived way down the bottom of the village, well, towards the railway track, and it was called the Retreat and the Old Mill House.
Okay.
So we were down there.
Okay.
Wow, wow, small
Yes.
world. That's crazy. I
That
was
is
not.
such a small world.
So we moved away from there. I mean, I moved into Aberdeen, but we moved away from there in about 2000, 2001. So a while back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Wow.
would have probably been spreading my wings and moving out of Newton Hill around the same time. But yeah, yeah, I grew up there literally from the age of 6. I lived in Newton Hill until I moved out as an adult. So
That's
that
bonkers.
is crazy, isn't it?
Skate
What a
Raw.
small
That's what they
world.
called it. Skate Raw. So
Yeah.
I've got relatives that are buried in the cemetery there, and to go back to our conversation, well, our topic of conversation, that pub, what was it called? The one by the shop
There's
and the
the
bus
Newton
stop?
Arms or there's Coiters.
Coiters was our hangout spot, and it was
Mhm,
because they
mhm.
used to let anything kind of go in there. It was like we
Yeah.
would just stay for lock-ins, and the jukebox was always on. Showing my age now, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was. Do you know what? And this is the thing. It was good times. You know, we did have good
Yes.
times, but obviously, you know, I didn't have an off button. Anyway, let's get back to the topic in hand, the conversation in hand. So just really tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up in Newton Hill then, and when you had your first drink.
Yeah, sure. So my childhood was busy. I was one of four, eldest of four. And, you know, I think my first drink was probably in Newton Hill Park. You
Mm,
know, like but I remember, before even having my first drink, I remember thinking, wow, I cannot wait to have a drink because I used to watch, my family were all quite big drinkers, to be
hmm
honest.
hmm
So, you know, mum, dad enjoyed a drink. My grandma, always loved a whiskey coke, so that I was always around people drinking and
Yeah.
celebrations, commiserations, everything in between. And there was always booze flowing, and I think I remember I couldn't wait to try it myself. And I think, probably from about the age of 13 or 14, I was trying alco pops here and there. And I remember like
Mhm.
Reef and Hooch and all those kind of
Yeah.
sugary alcohol pops. And I think I remember just feeling like a small wee buzz, thinking, oh my gosh, that's so good. But then um yeah, it was something that I then chased from a very young age. I wanted to feel how I felt when I had a drink. And couldn't get past that feeling. I wanted it all the time, to be honest.
Mm. It sounds very similar to me. I mean, I did a lot of the fellowship and NA and that, but I would
Mm-hmm.
see people in there and they would tell their main shares, and it would always be about, well, not always, but a lot of times it'd be about trauma, childhood trauma, things like that. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
had,
Mm-hmm.
almost textbook idyllic, childhood, and my parents did split up when I was 6, but we never went. My brother and me, we weren't rich or anything, but we never went without. You know, we always had food on on our table, on our plate, and we went to
Mm-hmm.
school. We had the odd holiday here and there, but there was no trauma there. But like you, when I got
Yeah.
the taste for alcohol, I just loved it. And that was then what me and my crew were doing every weekend. You know, once we'd had that first little, it was the same. It was round the park, and I think we got like 4 bottles of Diamond White each. And I don't think any of us made it to the fourth bottle because we were just absolutely
No,
hammered. But then it was just that
exactly.
was it. It was just party, party, party all the time.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, and it does. And I was similar to you. My parents split up when I was 6 as well, and actually that's when we moved to Newton Hill. And I think, unfortunately, I would say that I did have quite a bit of what I would now refer to as trauma in my childhood.
hmm
Um, just, various things happening when you grow up. And I think being the eldest, you are often forced to grow up a lot quicker than you would like. So
Right.
maybe lose out on quite a big chunk of childhood.
hmm
So I think when I discovered alcohol, it just kind of brought me back to feeling a bit carefree. I think there was a lot of heavy stuff going on in my life at the time that I found alcohol. And it was just this release. It was this escapism and I felt fun and I felt relaxed, probably for the first time in years.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, but I think for me, and I've spoken about this before, when my friends were doing it, there was very much it was just a bit of fun at a weekend. But I would find myself wanting to do it during the week. So, I'd often have a drink with my mum, or I would, um, and that is from a really young age,
I was going to say,
18
so what are we
onwards.
talking, like mid to late teens or early 20s? Or,
Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean, definitely the drinking started I mean, proper drinking started about 15, 16.
yeah.
And I'm talking, yeah, like I had I had injuries from drinking, about 16. I woke up with the worst black eye you've ever seen.
Mm.
And I had no idea how I got it, but I'd slipped and fallen in Aberdeen. I was in the uni halls with my friend's sister, and I drank like a whole bottle of Goldschlager.
Goldslager,
That
yeah, the
stuff
one
that
that had
had
the
the
little
gold
bits
bits.
of gold in it, and it was like
Yeah.
that would stay in yourself. It was like it was horrible. It was
Like
horrible stuff. But
it's the first and only time I ever drank that stuff. But
yeah,
I had that and then can't remember the rest of the night. I had to be carried back to my bed. And I think it actually chipped my eye socket because I'd fallen and
oh,
face first hit my face off of a chair,
oh
like a
Jesus,
metal chair. So, that's again, I had to take time off school because I had such a bad black eye. I didn't want to go into school with this black eye. So we're talking, quite heavy drinking before I'd even left high
yeah,
school.
and that's. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you're a mother now, and I'm a stepfather, and they're not 16 yet, but like, to take time off school for a black eye that's caused by a drinking injury is like, I mean, I don't know how many alarm bells are going off in my head now, but it was a different time, wasn't it? And it was just
Yeah.
like, oh well, that's what they do and kind of things. And I don't know if it is, still, well, it's not okay for kids to be doing that, but I don't know what other parents are doing. It might be a thing that is just kind of brushed off, but it is warning signs, isn't it? That's kind of
Oh, definitely. It really is. But I like you say, I will be interested to see the shift from
mm,
this generation that are just kind of coming into the drinking stage onwards, to like my children's generation, because I definitely do feel like there is a shift. There's more of a focus on, being health
yeah.
conscious, looking after your body. I think a lot of teenagers are now taking up running and weight training, and it's
Mm.
fantastic. Like I love to see young people out doing exercise because
Yeah.
it's something that I think at our age group when we were young, it was just as soon as you hit 15, 16, you're
Mhm.
trying to find the older kids who can buy you booze, who can get you whatever you need for a weekend, for whoever's house party or whoever. And you're all telling your mums that you're going to this other person's house, but you're actually going to this house in the middle of nowhere and all
Yeah.
staying there. And it's wild, but I don't know if that still goes on. It probably does. Maybe I'm naive thinking that everyone's like past it, but I
No,
definitely
but
feel like there's a shift.
I think you're right. They are much more health conscious. I wouldn't say that we weren't health conscious, but I mean, I don't know about you. I smoked. I obviously knew the dangers with smoking, but it was like in my head because I was young, it was like that's not going to affect me till I'm much older. So it was kind of like,
Mm-hmm,
don't
mm-hmm.
have to worry about that now. But then I never knew there was a danger with alcohol, apart from maybe getting really
No,
leathered and falling over or, I don't know, getting jumped or whatever, but I never knew there was an actual danger with it, like that it's causing 7 types of cancers or whatever. But the kids now, they can Google that
yeah.
and they're finding that out. And I think, but I also think they don't like to be out of control. I think they're so,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but they're very image conscious because they're on film all the time. Their friends can just pop their phone up and record them. So if they're doing something really stupid drunkenly, then
Yes,
that's going to be recorded, and they're stuck with that for a long time. So it's
that is so true.
yeah, but I
Thank
think I think you're
God
right. I
it
think there
wasn't.
is there is going to be a shift with that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So how did
I
your
hope so.
drinking then progress through? Kind of did you finish high school and go to uni, or how did that kind of go
So
on?
I didn't go to uni. I went straight into the oil and gas industry. So in
Oh,
Aberdeen,
amazing.
obviously that's the main industry in Aberdeen. A lot of
Yeah.
people work in the oil and gas industry. So I got a job at 16 working in the oil and gas industry as sort of a technical clerk type
Yeah.
role,
Cool.
and worked my way up from there. So I'm now actually a consultant in oil and gas. So I've kind of done all levels of my trade, and it's done me well. I think sometimes uni is the way to go, but also if you don't really know what you want to do, just getting in and getting the experience is ideal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like the whole apprenticeship
Um,
thing. I don't think people do that as much back then as they kind of do now. Because I think, you see people and they're like, oh, yeah, I did my apprenticeship. And back then it was almost kind of looked looked down upon in certain avenues, but
Mm-hmm.
those are the
Mm-hmm.
guys that are out there being plumbers and sparkies, and they're making an absolute fortune. And obviously, Aberdeen being the oil and gas industry, it's that's there's huge amounts of money in that. So up
Yeah,
there, but
yeah, it
yeah,
can be very good.
yeah,
And I think, yeah, you're right. I was sometimes a bit embarrassed about the fact that I didn't do uni. But to be honest as well, um, I at that stage of my life, I
mm-hmm.
just wasn't interested in being academic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forward to now, I am very much a growth mindset. I love to learn new things. I want to constantly be bettering myself. But at that time in my life, and I think a lot of people's lives at that age, you're just not thinking about
No,
career and aspirations, whatever. You're just wanting to have fun with your mates. And I
yeah,
think that's the kind of mindset that I was in at that point. And I just wanted to make money. That was the other thing. It was, I need money to be able to get a car, to be able to drive, and to be able to have my own freedom. I think for
yeah,
me, it was freedom. It was getting my own life away from whatever was going on in my current life. I needed money. So
mm-hmm.
to get money, I needed to be working. And I think my my drinking, I suppose, progressed into, I mean, certainly in the oil and gas industry, there was lots of, free events, like work dues, and it's so encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, and I was there in the golden years before the sort of oil and gas crash.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I remember being flown to Copenhagen because I used to work for Maersk, being flown to Copenhagen and this whole weekend event and wined and dined and all these delicious wines and stuff. And it was great fun, but everyone was just getting absolutely hammered,
Yeah, on the
And,
company's
and
dime, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I think, and I was also the youngest person in my company. And yeah, I suppose everyone was everyone was boozing, but my drinking just kind of went from one thing to another. So in my 20s, I feel like it was very carefree
mm-hmm.
and didn't really feel like it was an issue until I was becoming a mother. Like I knew that I had bad drinking habits. So I didn't think I was like an alcoholic. I didn't feel that I had something that would make me have to stop. But I was aware, quietly aware, deep down, that I was probably way too reliant on alcohol. Even before I had my first child. So I have two children. One's 8. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter's 8. My son's 9 months. So yeah, so let's go like 9 years ago, 10 years ago. I was probably starting to think, yeah, because I was living with my partner at the time. And I think when you are living with someone else who doesn't have that same relationship with alcohol, it really
Mm-hmm.
shines a light on your own. And when I started living with him, I was like, you're not looking for a drink most nights, whereas I am. Why is that?
Yeah. And were you
Um,
starting to hide it then, or were you quite open with the fact that you were having a drink and he wasn't, or was it?
so I was always, I'm a very, very honest person, like
Mm,
to the point that it's probably like I'm probably too honest, but it's like I think with my drinking, I didn't want to hide it because I thought if I was hiding it, then I definitely have got a problem.
yeah, yeah.
So I would almost just kind of accept that he might be judging, but I was going to do it. So it would almost be like, do you fancy a gin and tonic? And hope that he might, or and then if he didn't, I'd still have one.
Mm,
But it was really just I was always looking for an excuse to do it or hoping that he would be in the same mindset as me. But often he wasn't. He didn't want to because he didn't need to.
mm-hmm.
Whereas I felt like I couldn't enjoy my evening. I couldn't relax. I couldn't feel like me unless I was having that. And it was
Yeah,
like scratching an itch. And if I couldn't do it, then it was just like I was uptight and I couldn't relax.
yeah. That sounds. It sounds quite similar, but I guess even then you're still feeling like you're being judged because you are kind of drinking, and even though you're relaxing, you still got that kind of back of your mind going, "Oh, is he judging me?"
Yeah,
And yeah, so that
absolutely.
it's not really a way to live, even with your, like I was hiding it a lot because my partner towards the end, she would drink. So we'd maybe share a bottle of wine, but then I would have vodka stashed away. And I
Mm,
obviously my tolerance did go up, but she would start noticing, well, how come you're getting a bit more drunk than I am, and we've only had this one bottle of
yes.
wine, so I'd kind of then get two bottles of
Yeah.
wine to try and, but I would just end up drinking the whole lot. So, how did your kind of habits
Yeah.
form? I mean, was it just like bottles of wine or gin and tonics? Did it build and build?
Yeah, it was a mixture, exactly. So I think what I would do is I would be kind of sneaky. So it would be like, yeah, the bottle of wine to share. But
Hmm.
then, well, this is kind of further down the line actually, but the bottle of wine to share, but then it would be a pre-gin and tonic and it would be free poured. So it would be a strong gin and tonic.
Yeah.
And then it would maybe be like a little one at the end, or I'd leave some of the bottle of wine so that I could then open another one as well as that the next day. And but it was ridiculous. So it's just like the thought and the energy that goes into like thinking about how you can maximize what you can have that looks normal
Yeah.
um, is just exhausting. And when you get to that stage, and then what happened for me, Jimmy, is I separated with my partner, and then there was a couple of years of just it was a low point in my life of
Hmm.
just bad decisions, a short relationship which was extremely unhealthy, and my drinking ramped up quite significantly during that time because I was feeling all
Not
kinds of
happy.
emotions. I wasn't happy. I was regretful about some decisions I'd made, and I just got myself into a really bad place. Had a bit of a, I don't know if I'd call it a breakdown, but I was like signed off work with depression. I was, I think looking back, maybe still suffering from a bit of like postnatal depression
Hmm.
after my
Hmm.
first. And drinking became like way more than just what it was. It was
Yeah.
like every night or most nights. And then I found myself living on my own as an adult for the first time. And that was the point that, or the beginning of the end for me, because I was living on my own. But not only was I living on my own, well, I had my daughter with me half the
Hmm.
time as well. It also was the start of lockdown during coronavirus. So
Right.
I know it was just the worst combination. So it
It's
was
just
like I
like the
moved
perfect storm or the perfect nightmare type
exactly.
thing. Yeah, yeah,
It was like a free pass to basically drink as much as I wanted,
yeah.
especially on, so I wouldn't do it when I had my daughter with me, so she'd be with me half of the time. I'd still have, but I wouldn't be, drinking a bottle of wine. I'd maybe have a wine in the evening or two wines, but never enough that I would be irresponsible.
Hmm.
But half of the time I found myself on my own.
Mm.
And it was lockdown. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't go anywhere. And I was on my own and I was very lonely. And I was just at this point in my life where I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, but to escape those feelings of loneliness, of kind
Hmm.
of despair, I drank. And I got myself into this place where nobody was looking, nobody was judging, nobody cared because everyone was having their Zoom calls and their quizzes and their after work drinks on Zoom. And it
Hmm.
was encouraged because it was like, well, life sucks at the moment. Everyone's just drinking because it's
Yeah,
a bit of pleasure.
yeah.
Um,
And it's
so then,
that whole thing with, and I'm not saying I'm not a fan of the word alcoholic, and I'm not saying you were at that point, but even if you're a grey area drinker, like
mhm,
the alcohol wants you on your own. That's what it wants, and that's where kind of
yeah,
the majority of people I speak to, that's where they kind of end up before they get sober because you just kind of push everything away. And obviously the whole COVID thing, the lockdown thing, that was just I had done I'd broken up with my ex and I'd done a stint in a rehab in Blackpool. I was over in Hull, and then I got a place of
okay,
my own. So I had to come out of rehab when I did my 28
yeah,
days, make my way across the country, and it was like a ghost town. The 3 days after I went into rehab was when the first lockdown happened. So I was unaware of all the
okay,
shopping, kind of regiments and all these different restrictions and all that. So I came out,
right,
but then I got into this flat, my own, and had organized all that. How I did it without, being able to go and view it and all that. But we got that sorted. I got in,
yeah, yeah,
And that day I just relapsed. And then it was like the whole summer long,
Oh,
I was just drinking, drinking, drinking. But for me, it was
yeah.
like you, there was no one to stop me. There was no one to say, I would go on Zoom calls with family and all that, and I would maybe have like, like a cup, a mug or whatever, but it'd be filled with vodka. And as long as I wasn't
Yeah.
on till later on at night, I could kind of pass as being sober-ish.
Just
But
yeah, yeah, just in a good mood.
yeah, yeah.
And were you at the stage where it was like straight vodka?
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I would wake up in the morning and I'd have the DTs and it would be,
Okay.
if there was vodka there, or I mean, it was anything, whatever I could afford or whatever. It was really, really dark. And
Yeah.
if I would wake up and there was a little bit of vodka, that would be enough to kind of either get me to the shop. But there was some mornings I was waking up and I was just dry retching, I was just heaving. And then,
Oh
but then
God.
drinking vodka, bringing that back up, and then, you know, like settling it and then drinking again so that I could then get myself focused to even be able to go to the shop. Like
Wow.
it was really, really that I had to get, I think I had three medical detoxes to get me kind of,
Wow.
and the third one I was like, I need to do something about this now. So then I started going to the meetings and things. So
That
yeah.
is incredible that you made it out because I think that when you're that far into it,
Yeah.
getting out is,
Oh.
well, I can only imagine, like takes every ounce of willpower. Is there, just out of interest,
Mhm.
do you think there's something that that kind of clicked that made that happen for you?
To get out of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd had so many rock bottoms, and this I'd moved over here. I'd been in trouble with the police through things with my ex and an old friend,
Hmm.
and I was just gone. But every time I would get, like, I came over here and I had to do 2 weeks. What was it called? Like where you had to, because I'd moved in with my folks and we had to do 2 weeks isolation because we were in the middle of
Hmm.
lockdown. So this would have been July
Okay.
2020, and then I didn't have any booze, so I had to basically cold turkey it, and it was horrible, sweats and all that, which
Oh,
can be
yeah.
dangerous. And then
Yeah.
as soon as
Yeah.
those 2 weeks was up, it was a beautiful day, and I went out and I was like, I'm just gonna get a little quarter bottle of vodka, and I'll go and enjoy the sunshine, and then that's me. I'm not gonna drink. And it was like I was fooling myself. And then before I knew it,
Yeah.
I was back up to a bottle of vodka a day. Then my folks were obviously aware, and everyone was getting at their end of their tether with me, and
Yeah.
basically, yeah, cut a long story short, I ended up in hospital and I was saying to myself, if I once I get this, because they wouldn't medically detox me the first time, because like this time I went to hospital with my brother because I was too over
Hmm.
the limit, and they couldn't work out
Right.
why. So my brother had left me there, and they were coming and taking me in and going, and this is during all COVID restrictions, so I feel really guilty that I was taking up people's time, but they were
Hmm.
breathalyzing me. And
Hmm.
because I was feeling so shit, I would then go to it was still over the limit. I would go to the shop and I'd get
Yeah.
myself a little like quarter bottle of vodka or whatever, and I would drink that like outside the hospital. And then
Oh
they'd come and get
God.
me like an hour later and they'd go, why is this not going down? So they sent me home with a note that said,
Oh.
I had to give this to my folks. They had to go and buy me a bottle of vodka, and they give me, like, they said I have to have 8 40 ml shots of vodka a day. It's like an old-fashioned way of a detox because they know that you
Really?
can't just cold turkey off the alcohol at this point. I was
Okay.
that bad. And
Yeah.
but then again, that wasn't enough. And then I ended up going back into hospital 3 days later, and I said to myself, if I get this detox, I am going to do everything and anything I can to. So I ended up doing like meetings. I think they say 90
Brilliant.
meetings in 90 days and all of that stuff. So it was really
God.
tough at the beginning. I would go to the meetings rattling, and yeah, but once I kind of got through those first 3 months, it started kind of um
Clicking.
clicking. But yeah, but you're right what you're saying about the time and effort that we put into kind of just, you know, making ourselves available to have a drink and things like that. It's just absolute
Mm-hmm.
nonsense. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
what point did you think, right, this is it. I need to do something about this. And what did you do?
I think so. I mean, there were, I did have moments of um horrible drinking sessions where, I felt completely out of control and things. But
Mm.
I think for me, there was no rock bottom in terms of like one event, but I think there had been such a horrible few years lead up to my sobriety that, as I say, I'd made some really like bad decisions, and I'd just got myself to a place where I didn't recognize the person that I was anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't it didn't align with my core values and my morals. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, and I think I just had this moment of realization, that there's more to life
Yeah.
than what I was allowing myself to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And um it felt so crucial to me to sort of make a change, because I was like, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I was like, I was doing things like, I'd started running. So I had never run before, but I was like, I really wanted to, start looking after my health and things
Mm-hmm.
and try and make my mental health feel better. So running was a good way to do that. So I'd started running, and I had started just doing a bit more exercise and things. But I thought, like, there was, and that's right, I'd done keto to lose some weight, because
Mm-hmm.
I'd put on quite a lot of weight throughout that unhealthy relationship I was in, and the fact that I was drinking so much and a lot of wine, I'd put on a fair amount of weight. And I was like, right, I'm doing all these things to sort of better myself, but I was still drinking. So I think the main thing for me, and also I was in therapy, so I'd been in therapy
Right.
for 2 years, maybe a year and a half,
Uh-huh.
to get me through a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about here. And
And
then,
sorry, but did they ever
okay,
once say to you, like, are you drinking or how much are you drinking in therapy?
yeah, interestingly, we did talk about drinking and my
Uh-huh.
drinking, but it was never maybe you should
Yeah.
reassess how much you're drinking. It was never encouraged to me to try having a break.
Which is crazy, isn't it? It's the same with a lot of doctors, and it's like this is probably the first thing you should be, as we know, once you give
Yeah,
that up, everything else starts to kind of fall into place. Like I'm not saying it's a quick fix, but everything else then can be secondary and you can start managing those things easier and then like your fitness, your health, what you're eating. But
yeah,
once you stop that, it's like a kind of falling of all the cards, and it's
exactly,
crazy that that's
exactly.
not mentioned at all or kind of said, because it is this socially acceptable thing. So I'm sure your therapist and our doctors, they all like a drink. So that's the last thing they're going to suggest because nobody really sees it as big a problem as it is. But yeah,
Exactly, as harmful as it is. And I would remember doing all this good work. I felt like I was doing all this good work to try and make my life better,
yeah.
and then but I felt like I was just like pouring fuel on the fire by nighttime, because I was just like
At
undoing a
least you were
lot of,
recognizing that though, because some people be doing all that work and going, I don't understand why I'm still feeling like shit and why I'm not losing weight. It's because you're
yeah,
drinking 10 pints a night or two bottles of wine a
exactly.
night.
I
Yeah.
know, I know, that's it. So yeah, it just got to the point where, and I also remember there was one night, when they had those breaks in lockdown, you were allowed to have people come and visit. And I
Yeah.
remember my dad and his wife came down from Inverness to visit us, and I bought a bottle of Kraken rum and drank so much. And I just remember the next, like, they left and they must have gone, so they were staying in a hotel actually, so they left, and then I carried on drinking, and then I was almost sick because I was so drunk, the room was spinning, and I just remember being like, this is the worst feeling, like I hate it.
Uh,
And then the next day felt horrendous, and I was just like, why am I doing this, why? And then Hogmanay came, had a couple of drinks. Then the 1st of January, had a couple of drinks. And then I sat and journaled for like the first time ever. I
mhm.
was like, sat and wrote and wrote and wrote about what I wanted from my life, what I didn't want from my life, and just really like got really honest with myself. And I realized in that moment, I was like, I think I'd been looking to everyone else to fix my life for me and to help me and to listen and support and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, actually, the only person that's going to make the big changes that are really going to change my life is me.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing that I need to do is try and stop drinking or try and have a break. So I
Mm.
never committed to not drinking forever because there was just no world where I could imagine myself not drinking.
It's the hardest
But
thing
I
is
thought if
to
I,
kind of fully accept I'm never going to have a drink again. That is the hardest
oh,
thing. And I think
yeah,
every time like that I would kind of relapse, like those times when I'd stop drinking, in the back of my head, it was kind of like, yeah, but you're going to have another drink. Do you know what I mean? I hadn't
yeah,
fully given up until that last time. And then that was it. It was like, I know now that if I have another drink, I'm probably going to end up in jail or,
yeah.
back in an institution or in the ground. And I didn't really fancy any of those three. So,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
they don't sound great, do they?
No, not at all. Yeah, yeah.
So I think yeah, it just was the right thing. It was the right time and it was the right thing to do. And I set 100 days as my challenge.
And
And
when was that sober date? That are we talking
that's
2020
the
still or
second 2021. Is it? No, 2020. Yeah, because I think there's not too many days difference between us. I'm like 1546 today or something like that.
right, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I was in the August, so you were in the December, did you say, of 2020? Yeah,
January.
I think
Yeah.
I'd start January. So I think I was looking today, we started following around kind of December, I think, of 2021. So you would have been about a year then. So yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Um so yeah,
So
sorry,
I think
you did the 100 days then, yeah.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what
I
you
just
set out
kind
to
of
do.
set it out. I downloaded this app called I Am Sober.
Mhm.
Didn't have Instagram, didn't have any of that. I just sort of set a challenge. I was like, right, get to 30 days. Then once you get to 30 days, see how you feel. Try and get to 100 days and then take it from there.
Mhm.
And then genuinely thought after the 100 days I would just have a drink again because
Right.
I was like, then I'll probably be okay and whatever.
Yeah.
But honestly, uh, I started looking on this I Am Sober app. They have a community section and it's
Uh-huh.
kind of like, sober Instagram world, but it was very good because it was like day one and you had everyone saying, right, day one, this is what I'm pledging and I'm going to do this and I can do this one day at a time. And then you had people celebrating and cheering you on, and then you got to day three, and you're all basically chatting, and you're all on the same time zone.
Yeah.
You've done 3 days, you've done 5 days, and it was really great because you're all bigging each other up and
Yeah.
going like, yes, we can do another day, we can do another day. And then I got to the 100 days and I couldn't believe it. My friends couldn't believe it. They were like, there's
Mhm.
no way she will. And I made it. And I the changes and the way I felt and the energy. I mean, I was definitely pink clouding. They talk about that
Oh
pink cloud,
yeah.
and I was high on life. Like
But
I don't think I felt
use the
that
pink
great.
cloud. I loved it. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was brilliant. Like I was so buzzing about the fact that I'd kept my promises to myself. I was looking after my fitness. I was like, I like almost had too much energy. I was like, what am I going to do with all this? Like I've got so
Hmm.
much new zest and like excitement for life, and it was fantastic. I was like, if I have a drink now, it's basically like me waving goodbye to all that.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Yeah. No, I'm
So
exactly the
you know,
same. Like I think once I'd done about 6 months, so it was in February 2021, and I was buzzing. I was going to all the meetings. I'd started my own business, being a gardener, and I was still
brilliant.
living at my parents', but it was over here. So our the Isle of Man was kind of we'd almost eradicated. Well, we nearly got to 100 days without a case, and then somebody
Got
from the
you.
UK brought it over again. So then we went into a few little
Oh
mini
no.
lockdowns. But we were really like as soon as it was spoken about, we went straight into lockdown. So I'm not saying the UK was bad, but we
Yeah.
kind of really managed it a lot better. It's a
Yeah.
smaller island, so it can do that. But anyway,
Yeah.
not getting into the politics. I was just like, as you say, buzzing. I was so enjoying the meetings. I was doing all the service at NA and things like that. And to be fair,
Mhm.
drugs were never a problem with me, but I took them, but they were never. It was always alcohol. But with NA, alcohol's a drug, so they just accepted me with open arms. But I started
Yeah.
doing these little YouTube videos, and it was like,
Okay.
it was just mostly for me at the time. I
Yeah.
mean, I was hoping to go, kind of, interstellar with it. It didn't happen, but you know,
Yeah.
we live in hope. But
Yeah,
it
we
was
do.
great for me as well. And I would go out and I would sit in my car, like, you know, in between jobs or whatever, and I would just
Yeah.
record these little videos about, like, you know, how I'd got sober and this, that, and the other, and you know what it
Brilliant.
was that made me drink, and you know, but it was getting it all out of me. It was just good to be able to do
Yes.
that, and then, you know,
It's
and
like a
that's
form of therapy.
absolutely, yeah, without a doubt. And I, you know
Mhm.
what, like the whole power of Instagram, sober Instagram has just been amazing. So you know, it brings
Mhm.
so many people together, and I know a
Mhm.
lot of people don't use, like, you know, AA or Smart or anything like that, and but just having these people that are there to support us is just amazing. So did you,
Yeah.
apart from the I Am Sober app, did you do any kind of other meetings or
No, I
anything like
didn't.
that? No.
I didn't. I never did a meeting. I never did anything else. And a lot of people have, said it's the best thing they've ever done. And I absolutely think there's a place for it. And I'm
Yeah, of
so
course.
pleased that it helps people. But I just never felt that I needed to because
No.
of, I suppose, getting to where I did on my own.
Hmm.
But I would never rule it out, Jimmy.
Yeah.
So like I
Yeah.
think that the further I go into sobriety, the more I realize the fragility of it never goes away.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm probably having probably one of the most testing periods of my sobriety yet. And I can see why, like for instance, AA is such a good tool for that because
Yeah.
you really have to, I suppose, like be honest with yourself. And there's a lot of periods in my sobriety where I've probably been raw dogging it and just like
Okay.
not really prioritizing it and just kind of getting through rather than being properly present and enjoying it and putting my sobriety first, if you know what I mean. I think there's a
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
being sober and also like just
Well,
kind
I
of
mean, I don't want to use the
dragging
word,
yourself
but
through.
what do they call it? Dry drinking. And I'm not saying that you're
Yeah.
doing that, but sometimes that can be a term they use, and that can encompass all different types of it. But I know what you mean. You're kind of, you're sober, but you're not actually. I mean, what are you saying? Do you sometimes think about having a drink, or is it thinking
Yeah,
that's gonna
yeah,
help?
definitely.
And yeah, yeah. But then
So I
again,
definitely still,
you've been going through pregnancy and you're a new mum, and you know, as I say, I've never been, you know, had newborns or anything like that, but to have gone through the whole, you know, toddler up to 7, 8, you're kind of done,
yeah,
and now you've gone straight back into it. So maybe that's,
yeah.
you
Oh,
know, a
it's
lot to
it's
be
it's
said for it.
hugely, so it's impacted me more than I expected, I would say. So
Hmm.
I think and I really do have a lot to say on it, but I feel like I haven't got the time to actually post as much about it now because obviously I've got a baby
Yeah,
who I've
yeah,
got to
yeah,
look
yeah,
after.
yeah, yeah.
But what I'm finding at the moment is when I got sober, I had to use all my toolkit
Yeah.
to keep me on the straight and narrow. So I was having to run for the endorphins. I was doing yoga. I was meditating. I was trying to keep my brain as happy and calm and chill as I could.
Yeah.
Um, and I was weightlifting like
Wow.
4 times a week. So I loved going to the gym and lifting heavy weights. That was like, I didn't know I was going to love that, but I absolutely adored it. It's like, it was my release. It was like nothing made me feel better than having like really loud music and lifting weights. And then like the drive home, just feeling that like buzz.
Buzz, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so when I obviously got pregnant and then had my son, I've entered, as I was saying earlier, this new era of
Mm.
sobriety where literally time for a shower is rare. You get 5-10 minutes here or there, you can go for a shower, but you're always rushing to the next job that needs done, or and sleep deprivation as well. So he's not a good sleeper. So I'm kind of, I've gone from like having a lot of time to focus on myself,
Yeah,
and my needs in sobriety, to having not very much at all. So I'm not really able to do any of the toolkit things, so like the running, the gym, the sleep is gone to
yeah.
shit.
Yeah,
And
that's a must sometimes, but yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
exactly.
But
So
then,
I think,
just to say on that, like if you were drinking, and I know there's a lot of new mums out there, like you know, way back in the
mm,
day, were drinking not long after you'd had your
yeah,
daughter, and if you've got sleep deprivation and then hangovers and drinking on top of that,
Oh,
so at least you're not doing that.
oh,
That's the main thing. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
You're right. Because nobody needs a hangover and then no sleep. Oh God, that's like I couldn't cope.
But
But I
that's the
found a
thing,
way.
that whole mummy wine culture, it's like that whole you deserve it. So you've been looking after the kid all day and now it's mum's time,
Yeah.
you're gonna sit down. But it's not one glass, is it? You know what I mean? It's
No,
and then
no,
you've got to get
especially
up in
if
the
you're
middle of
pre
the night and yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's just if you're predispositioned to like, want more and more, it's just a toxic culture that I'm so pleased to be uninvolved in now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think this period is particularly testing and amazing in one aspect, amazing to have my son and experience the baby days again. But I think it's just that when you're not keeping the balance and you're not doing the things that keep you feeling really good,
Hmm.
it's very easy to let those thoughts and that kind of wine witch on your shoulder going, oh, but imagine if you could just have a little drink, that would make you feel great. And I posted about a situation recently with me and my partner, and he's a drinker but doesn't drink loads.
Yeah.
He's got a good relationship with alcohol, which I couldn't be with someone who didn't.
Excellent.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like it was a Saturday night, and we've got three kids between us. So he's got a son, and I've got a daughter, and we've got one between us. And that weekend we had all the kids with us, and it's chaos. It's
Hmm.
beautiful chaos, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Lovely,
Yeah.
but busy. And by the time they'd all gone to bed, we were just frazzled. So he's frazzled, I'm frazzled. We're nipping at each other, um, and then we're doing the bedtime routine, and then we kind of both meet back in the kitchen after they're
Mhm.
all in bed. And he was just like on a different, he was much happier. And he
Ah,
was just like, oh, it's so chill and happy. And I was still feeling that kind of like pent up frustration. And I was like, I realized why he had cheered up. And it's because he'd had a couple of drinks.
yeah.
And honestly, Jimmy, in that moment, I was like so triggered by it because I was like, I'm so jealous right now that you have that outlet
Hmm.
and you can
Hmm.
just have a couple of old fashions and you're fine.
Yeah.
And I have to sit here and and you want to be able to be on the same wavelength and kind of just like relax and have a bit of fun and nice chat. But I just couldn't come down from how I was feeling.
Yeah.
But alcohol does give you that. So I had to, and he was very good in that moment. He was like, I will feel shit tomorrow. You will not. And he was like, it's fine for me at the moment, but this isn't what you want long term. It's
Yeah.
just a temporary release. And he's very supportive. And we kind of talked through it. And then I posted on Instagram, and my pals on there all reached out and really made me feel better. But it was such a good example of the tests that we're constantly put through.
And it's good that he is aware of kind of potential trigger that it is to you, but obviously he knows that he's going to be hungover tomorrow, but he won't be having another drink that tomorrow evening or the next night. He'll just have
Yeah.
those, and then that's put back in the cupboard and it's left for a long time, you know. Whereas you and I,
Mhm.
Jade, we can't do that, you know, and that's
No.
and it's interesting. I mean, we're going to what day is it? It's Thursday today. So Saturday we've got a couple of our friends. They have a big kind of, it's like a garden house party. You know, it
Oh,
sounds much
nice.
grander
Yeah.
than it is. It's a lovely house and a lovely area over in Peel, and you know, it's great. But last year, you know, I think we had to dress up as cowboys and cowgirls or something.
Okay.
I don't think there's a dress up this year, but it was
Yeah.
fine. You know, but. I was drinking zero Guinness last year, and I
Mhm.
don't really touch them. I might have some this year, but because I didn't really know that many people at the party, I was kind of
Yeah.
almost using them as a kind of crutch, and it was kind of,
Mhm.
you know, I think I ended up having about seven or eight of them, which is quite a lot,
Okay.
you know, but I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
obviously just kind of, you know, as you say, almost raw dogging that bit. And
Yeah.
I actually felt a little bit funny the next day. It wasn't a hangover, but I felt there was because they're not zero zero. You know, there is something in them, and
Yeah.
but you know, so this year I would say I'm a little bit anxious about it coming up. But you know, I know
Yeah.
a lot more people now, and see the thing with me is, and maybe it's getting older. when I'm in a situation where there's lots of loud music, and like if we go to a bar, or there was a festival on a few weekends ago, and I literally couldn't hear anyone next to me talking, and that kind of almost
Okay.
makes me feel more anxious because I feel like I'm not able to be myself and talk to them. Whereas the house party,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and sit in the garden where there's probably not any music, and I'll just chat to people out there, and I'll be okay, you know. And
Yeah.
it's from 3 till about 10, so it's not going to be all night anyway.
Okay.
And the
Yeah,
thing is,
that's good. It's
most of them,
known.
like a lot of Jen's friends, Jen doesn't drink really, and you know, well, I'll drive, but I don't think she's drank much really this year at all, if
No,
any. But our
that's
friends like a
great.
drink, but you know, at the end of the day, they don't care whether I'm drinking or not. They all know my situation anyway, and I'm coming up on nearly
Yeah.
5 years now, so it's not. It's more about it's more about my anxiety before I get there, if that makes sense. And then once I'm there, I'm
Mhm.
fine. And I'm like, yeah, you know.
Yes.
But I know what you're saying. There is those little thoughts that pop in, but again, I
Yeah.
always just
It's
do
knowing
that.
your boundaries.
Yeah, but it's play that tape forward, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's playing the tape forward, knowing your boundaries, and kind of knowing that, like, if you were to go to that thing and really felt out of your comfort zone and felt too anxious, you could go to Jen. We need to go. I think, it's
Yeah,
potentially, just a bit much. And I
yeah,
think that that's part of my sobriety, is just remembering that I can leave events if I don't feel okay.
yeah.
And I haven't had to, because generally I've got very supportive friends and I don't tend to go out that much at all. So I'm quite a home bird. Like, I'm quite happy going out for brunch and coffees, and by nighttime I'm in the house, and I like it that way.
Well, I'm exactly the same as that. And I think, you know, I mean, maybe it is an age thing as well, but I enjoyed my time when I was younger, going out and doing all that. But obviously, I think you and
Yeah.
we just pushed it to the limit and our tolerance went up,
Mm-hmm.
and then it became an issue. But I think a lot of people tend to grow out of the alcohol thing. You know, they get to a certain
Mm-hmm.
age and they
Mm-hmm.
go, well, we're just going to stay in the house. We might have one glass of wine and that's it. But whereas there's a lot of people still out there that are still clinging on to those, you know, heady days of when we were younger and still going
Yeah.
drinking to blackout. And that's where, you know, like what you were saying earlier, when you started realizing there was an issue and you knew what it was, but you didn't quite want to admit to it. And I think there's a lot of people out there. And it's like that thing, if you think there's a problem with alcohol or whatever, then there probably is a problem with alcohol, you know?
100%. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
and I've spoken about this before on my page, I think it's, if it's taken up a lot of your headspace and you're literally thinking, right, will I go to the shop tonight for a wine? Won't I? Or you're promising yourself in the morning that you won't, but then later on you're finding yourself in the shop picking up another bottle from the fridge. Chances are you've got a reliance of some description,
Yeah.
because you're not able to stick to your word. And people don't want to hear it though, unless they have reached a point where they do want to do something about it. I think there's an element of having your head in the sand going, I don't want to know, because um yeah, it's a hard one. It's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it has some level of control over you. And I think
Mhm.
that actually alcohol has some level of control over most people who drink it. It's just the varying levels of control, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I used to go as far as like, if we'd maybe said, and this was my ex back across, and if we'd said, oh, we're not going to drink tonight, I would be like, oh, what can I cook? You know,
Yes.
and then
Oh my
what can I,
God.
but well, the recipe says I need red wine for this, so I'm just having a glass. Do you want a glass? Oh, yeah. And I knew I could wangle that, you know, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh, so
manipulation, of
familiar.
course it is, but yeah, and it's
Yeah.
just madness. Yeah.
That's something I used to do, is, the little bottles that you could buy for the wine,
Yeah.
or sorry, for the food. I would buy like the miniature bottles, but then I'd also buy a big bottle, and then I'd like use the miniature for the food, but then open a big one and use a tiny bit from that, and then drink the bottle. I can't even remember what the reasoning was, but it was just silly things like that where you're going, it's just maximizing how much you can actually drink.
Well, I would go to
Ridiculous.
Aldi and I would be going down to get the wine or whatever and food for whatever, you know, make lunches or something like that. But I'd go,
Yeah.
we'll get a bottle tonight. So I'd go down to Aldi to get it. And it'd literally be like 3 minutes round the road. But I'd get four of those little bottles and
Hmm.
down them on the way up the road. Like because
Okay.
if
Yeah.
like and it's a bottle because they're a quart bottle. So instead of getting a
Yeah.
bottle because that's gonna look making me look like a vagrant walking up the street with a bottle, but I
Yeah.
could literally just scull those in
Yeah.
like a few seconds and then just put them in the bin and then walk in the house, open the wine, and then so I'd already be flying at that point, be
Yeah. Yeah.
downing a bottle of wine
Exactly.
in 3 minutes. Yeah.
And when we're speaking about those things, Jimmy, like you think, even if you don't realize it, what is that doing for your own self-esteem?
Yeah.
Because on the moments between drinking, when you are sort of more compos mentis and present, you're just wanting to escape your own mind, aren't you? Because you're just thinking, what not I'm not putting words in your mouth, but this is how I used to think.
Hmm.
What a failure.
Oh,
I used
yeah.
to be like, what a failure, what a loser, like you're so weak. How can't you stop this?
Hmm.
And I used to just berate myself. And the self-hate that came from drinking that regularly was awful.
Yeah. I know. I totally agree. I mean, I'm a happy and content person, and I've always been quite happy. But for a long time, I was just in the pits of depression, which was
Mhm.
definitely brought on by the alcohol. And like you, I was just, I'd got to the point where I was like, I just didn't care anymore. I knew
Yeah.
that I was the biggest loser, and that the only thing that was keeping me going was basically when am I getting my next drink, and it was sad, and
Yeah.
but I didn't see there was a way out of it. I didn't know that I could. I just thought, nah, this is it. I'm done for. So yeah, and
And how
also like I was going to
Mhm.
say, we've always got this. I suppose it's kind of a bad rap being Scottish. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
that's when you showed up on my Instagram. I was like, oh, another Scottish person on the
Yeah.
sober Instagram because
We can do it.
we can do it. Yeah, because I think I was listening to Darren McGarvey, who had in the podcast. He did the documentary a number of years ago, and when the documentary came out, and I think it was about five years ago, maybe not as long,
Mhm.
but Scotland was the worst place in Europe for alcohol and alcohol related diseases and
Mm.
deaths, and Glasgow was the worst in Scotland at that point.
Wow.
And I was
Okay.
just like if you look at, I was looking at some of the stats today. Scotland's not the worst in the UK anymore. I think Northern
Oh,
Ireland's
okay.
got the worst figures, and I think England is above Scotland as well, and I think Wales is
Right.
bottom. I might be wrong in those. I'll post a little thing, but yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's weird that it's good to see that we're not like obviously, I don't want to wish anything on Northern Ireland
No,
or any of these places, but it's just nice to see that Scotland's not
a
top of
shift.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
because for a long
exactly.
time it was life expectancy went down in Scotland and all of these things. It was just because the
Yeah.
diet and the smoking and the alcohol was just killing people because
Yeah. It's awful. And I think there is this thing of like I do struggle sometimes with that. I've had a few Scottish weddings and Kayleys and
Mhm,
get-togethers, and it's all about the drams and about every and there is a place in my heart
mhm.
that I'll always have a fondness for alcohol in that respect because there's like the kind of Scottish like culture is
Yeah.
so ingrained and woven with alcohol, isn't it? And whiskey and that kind of
Oh,
uh,
it's absolutely, and
easy to romanticize it.
yeah, and it's I mean, Isle of Man, it's very Celtic over here as well. So we've got a lot of the same kind of traditions. There's lots of like Manx music over here that we go to, and those sessions that they do in the pub. And I've been to a few, but they're very, very alcohol fueled, and it is traditional. And I know what you're saying, it is cultural, but I think it's time to kind of change,
Mhm.
and we're not still living in
Yeah, yeah,
the kind of medieval times and things, but
no.
it is, and we do
So,
glamorize it because the whole, I'm getting married in the summer, and we're kind of going to
oh,
try and do a bit
congratulations.
of a thank you. We're going to do a bit of a Kaylee and all that, and I'm wearing the kilt,
Brilliant.
so it's going to be, but there'll be definitely lots of no no Zeco as well.
Nose echo.
No
That's
Zeco,
brilliant. Oh,
yeah,
that'll be amazing.
yeah,
A question for you, Jimmy Lee.
sure.
Do you, because you have done, you know, a was it NA, did you say?
Any I did, yeah, Narcotics
Yeah,
Anonymous, but it's the same 12 steps and
it's
all
the
of that kind of
same.
stuff. Similar, yeah, yeah.
So, do you, having done that in your sobriety, do you still miss it or ever get tempted, or are you just like so over it that it's just not a thought for you now?
I'm never tempted anymore. No, I
That's
have
good.
thoughts
Hmm.
like, as I say, I've moved in with my fiance, and watch what I was going to say here. Like, I love it in here. They went away at the weekend, and it kind of reminded me of when I first moved into my cottage, and I was just coming up on about 9 months sober when I moved in there, and it was left to my own devices. Nobody'd stop me, and it was like, oh my God, I could have a drink. But then I did that whole thing, play the tape forward. And I remember
Yeah.
last weekend, they all went away for the weekend and left me, and it was kind of that whole thing. It was like we used to call it an empty, didn't we?
Yeah.
In Scotland when the folks were
Exactly.
away. There was no way I was going to go and have a drink, and it wasn't because
No.
I'd moved in here. It was nothing to do with that, but it was just that fleeting thought came in, and it was like, oh, but you could have a drink, but it was gone in
Hmm.
an instant. So
Yeah.
no, and the thing with the fellowship is that and I have no problem with it, and I did it for religiously for the first year, and then
Okay.
because we went into another little mini lockdown, we couldn't get to a meeting, and we went to a park and did it out in the woods or whatever, but there was always that mantra like if you don't get to a meeting, you're going to relapse and this, that, and other. So that was always kind of built into my head. And I thought, well, what if we get a bigger lockdown and I can't get to a meeting and I'm
Mhm.
not able to get on Zoom? So I was like, I need to now move into the next phase of my sobriety and start living away from this almost, it'd almost become another addiction for me going to the fellowship because I was just so
Ah,
steeped in it. So I just
okay.
had to kind of break away from that because I didn't want to be 60 or 70 going, my name's Jimmy and I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic. So
Yeah.
to go back to that question, yeah, it's not there anymore. Now, I've always
Brilliant.
said to myself, what if there's any major trauma that comes along in my life, like the death of a loved one, God forbid, or anything like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think back then I was thinking, oh my God, that would be a real test and possibly, but now I'm like, no, do you know what? I wouldn't even want to dishonor that person or
Oh,
whatever by
yeah.
drinking because why, what's it going to do? So yeah, never say never, and that is one of the things, one day at a time, but I'm definitely not clinging one day at a time.
No,
That's
no,
a
it
long
sounds like
time
you're
ago.
very
Yeah.
strong in your sobriety, which is brilliant. And to be honest, I feel the same. I do like I have moments of where I feel the pool is there and I just wish I could have that bit of escape. But I
Hmm.
know I'm very self-aware as a person and I understand why I feel like that. I'm
Yeah.
sleep deprived.
Yeah, you're
I
going
am,
through a massive change in your life again. And it's
yeah.
like the last time you did that, you had a crutch to deal with it. So, I mean, when did you listening to Terry's
Hmm.
podcast today? I think you waited until after you were breastfeeding, you finished breastfeeding. So how
Yes.
long after she was born did you start really drinking again then?
Oh gosh, it was probably yeah, probably like 9 months, probably
Yeah,
around this
it
age,
was around this
yeah.
time. So your brain maybe is going back to that time when you were like all of the sleep deprivation and all that, and your brain's going, well, why are we not getting that relief again? Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like on that
Yeah,
almost a
exactly.
muscle memory type thing. So
Probably. It
it,
probably is.
I hate the saying, although it is a good saying, it will pass.
It will.
And
Yeah,
you know that
100.
if you were to go out and start drinking again, it would just make it a million times worse.
That's right. There's nothing would make me drink now. Like you were saying about, God forbid somebody passing away. My
Mm.
grandma passed away in March and I was extremely
Oh,
close to her. She was like, like that motherly influence in my
yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
and so I was faced with a new challenge of losing somebody that was very close to me and that was a constant and somebody who, would just check in all the time.
Yeah.
And so not having her has been a big test as well. But like you're saying, not one part of me ever thought, oh, I need to drink to get through this. It
Yeah.
was more, I'm glad I'm not drinking to get through this
Yeah.
because I don't need it.
You don't need
I
it.
want to be and processing all those emotions present is very powerful because I think you do actually process them
Hmm.
rather than just numb them.
Numb them and drown them out.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's it. Exactly. Exactly.
And I mean, as you say, you've had so much going on in such a short space of time in the past 9 months with your grandma dying as well. So yeah, really sorry about that. What
Hmm.
advice would you kind of
No,
maybe
thank you.
give to someone that was at early stages of sobriety or thinking about giving it up like yourself back
Hmm.
then?
Yeah. What advice would I give them? I think I would say find your people, find support. I think that's the number one. Like, do not do this alone
Hmm.
because you need to feel seen and heard by other people who get it. Um, my sobriety page has literally saved my ass so many times because I think that when you look out and you see so many people doing fighting the same fight as you, it's
Yeah.
empowering and it makes you feel so much less alone. So however that may be, join that app I Am Sober that I was talking about, join the fellowship, create an Instagram page, or just follow Instagram pages that are sobriety content heavy so that you can see that there's a world outside of the world that you're in at the moment. And then I think the other thing is just maybe not setting goals that are unachievable. I think if it feels too much, don't set forever as the
Hmm.
goal.
Hmm.
Set small, achievable goals. That's always my advice because I think that once you start to feel the benefits of sobriety, it's easy to go on for longer. But you have to get past that first hurdle of like the first 30 days, the first 100 days, the first 6 months. Because really, to begin with, it's a lot of hard graft with not much return.
Yeah.
But when you sort of get further down the line, you're getting all of the benefits, the good bits, and it's easier as well. So I think a lot of people seem to do the first chunk of sobriety, which is actually the hardest bit, like breaking the habit and getting
Hmm.
into the new habit of not drinking, but then they kind of relapse, go back to the start, and it's the hard bit. So if you get to maybe 30 days, a month, a few months, and you're thinking, oh, I really want a drink, I think at that point, remind yourself of how hard it was to do the first bit. Do you
Yeah.
really want to go back and do that again? Just push through and you're cooking with gas, you know?
I love that. And you know what? Just as you were explaining that there, it made me think of running because I've started running again. I'm doing the Great North Run in
Yes, it's a
September.
great
So,
comparison.
but it's like that first couple of minutes, like I went out running last night, those first couple of minutes, I'm like, why am I doing this? It's really
It's
hot out there.
horrible.
I'm like, this, why am I doing, why? I could just stop now, go home and have a cup of
Yeah,
tea. Do you know what I mean? But then once you get past that and you start going, you're like, oh, this is why I do it. This is why, because I enjoy running. So yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
and
it's
and
good.
and just on that, I remember reading something about, you know, the difference between like drinking and running. So it's
Hmm.
that kind of drinking gives you the short term dopamine hit and the buzz, but then it's long term, it's affecting your health, it's making you feel shit, it's giving you hangovers. So long term, it's not bringing you any joy or happiness. But running is the opposite, isn't it? It's short term, it's horrendous, it's hard, it's graft, you're hating life. But then you finish that run and you feel bloody brilliant. You're adding years onto your life. You're feeling, you're getting the boost, you're getting that longer term dopamine hit and all the endorphins. So it's
Yeah.
just that difference. It's like short term pain, long term gain, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And
Yeah.
I used to run when I was a drinker, and I don't know how I managed it, but that would be my first thing at the end. I remember doing a 10K in Leeds and they brought out this new isotonic lager. So at the end of the race, you got a free pint and it was
Okay.
alcoholic. And I was like, ah, and then that was me. I was in the pub.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I've just
That's
done a
it. Yeah.
10K and then I'm going to go and get leathered.
Mad.
So it's crazy. Jade,
Yeah.
if you could go back
Yeah.
to like the point in your life when you really started drinking, so even when you were like 14, 15 or whatever,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
you've got two options. You go the path that you're on now to where you're at right now, or you could just go the other path and never drink. Which path would you take, do you think?
Oh, never drink. Like,
Mm.
I think that it's given me some, I mean, don't get me wrong, like it has given me some fun experiences. And yeah, it's a very good question because I suppose there's so many of my memories between that point and now that involved alcohol.
Hmm. Hmm.
So by saying never drink, well, it's like, well, would I want to not have those fun times with my friends, holidays, da, 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 da. But I think if I hadn't drank, I think I would have had more motivation to do things. I would have had more of a growth mindset.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
have had, I would have had probably more willingness to focus on my health and my fitness. So
yeah.
no, I would have chosen not to drink because
Okay, yeah, no, that's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I like it. I like
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Mm-hmm.
would you say you regret getting sober, Jade?
No, 1,000% no chance. It's the best thing I could have ever done for myself and my family. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
life
I mean,
changing.
that's the thing. They always say you can't get sober for anyone but yourself, but that has the repercussions on your family, your friends, your loved ones, and all that. So we do it for ourselves, and then it's like we all reap the benefits. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So do you have anything else you want to say to? Oh no,
No, I think, oh,
I've got a new feature that I've started on
okay.
the podcast. So can you tell us your favorite or best or whatever you're reading at the moment? But it's got to be quit lit or and a film to do with kind of recovery. So for the listeners.
Oh, so actually, I haven't started this book, but I'm very excited to start it. So
Hmm.
it's the No Lost Causes Club
Oh,
by Brutal Recoveries page. So
right.
I cannot for the life of me remember her name, so apologies, but she is also Scottish and she runs Brutal Recovery, the Instagram page, and she is just about to release a book in July. And
Uh-huh.
it just sounds like it'll be right up my street. So I'm very, very excited to read that book. And
I'll be checking that one out as well. And obviously I'll put these on the show notes. Is it Lauren McQuiston?
yes,
Right. Yeah.
that's it's Lauren. Yeah. So
I
I
didn't just
actually,
remember that. I did Google it there. So yeah.
yes, I was like, oh, good knowledge. And a film about recovery. Do you know what? I actually don't think I know one. So
Oh,
I feel like I'm going to be rubbish and not actually have an answer for you. I can't
no,
think of one off the top of my head.
it's absolutely fine. I mean, I did film at uni, so I'm very much a film buff and
Yes,
or film nerd. And so
love
when I
that.
got into recovery, I was like, I need to find films to do it. So there is loads, but you
Is there
might have
any you'd
seen.
recommend?
I would recommend. There's a film called Beautiful Boy. I think it's on the iPlayer. It's got Steve
Okay,
Carell and Timothy Chalamet, who's amazing. And it's a
okay.
true story about it's more to do with I think it's methamphetamine that the son has, but the dad is just at his end of his tether.
Mm.
The father wrote a book. I think the sons wrote a book as well, but the film's based on the book that the father
Okay.
wrote. It's called
Beautiful
Beautiful
boy.
Boy. And another one is 28 Days with Sandra Bullock.
Mm,
And
okay.
she's brilliant and she's just an
Yeah.
absolute wreckhead and she ends up going into rehab for 28 days. And it's
Okay.
not to be confused with the zombie film of a similar name, 28 Days Later. But yeah, it's not that.
Well, I will check them out. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Cool. So anything else you want to say to the listeners before we
No,
go?
honestly, I've just loved having a chat with you, Jimmy. Thank you for having me. And
Well,
yeah,
thank you for taking these little moments that you've got while your boy's in bed
I'm
and giving
enjoying the
up to come and
break.
speak out. Well, there you go. I'm sure Dad's looking after them, but yeah,
Yes, I can see him in the background. So I
thank you
better go and
so.
actually do the
Yeah,
nighttime
thank you
feed.
so much for giving us your time, and it's been lovely to get to know you and have a chat, Jade.
Yeah,
So,
same.
all right, well, you have a great
Okay.
evening and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. You too. Bye
Cheers.
bye.
Cheers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jade. That was, just a great conversation that we had. It was so nice to finally kind of catch up and get a chance to speak to you. I really enjoyed what you were saying about the I Am Sober app, which was just, it sounds like it was a godsend to you at the beginning to have, so many people at the same level at the same time. I don't think I knew that app existed. I mean, I was obviously quite heavily into the meetings with NA and things like that, but the I Am Sober app sounds really good, so I'll put a link to that in there as well. But it was just, it was good to talk about, anxiety for events and parties that I was having and still have. But it does get better, and I think by doing these podcasts, that's really what's kind of bringing it home for people. So it's just really kind of good to hear different people's stories, and Jade's is a really, really great Instagram account, and her story just kind of I think it's helping so many people. But it was interesting to hear what Jade was saying about how she's struggling again. Not struggling, maybe that's too harsh a term, but having little moments where she is kind of thinking about alcohol and things like that again. So it's good to know that. Is it good? It's good to know that it doesn't. What am I trying to say? I think what I'm trying to say is that even if you're 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you can still fall back into that trap. I know that I could still fall back into that trap. I just know that I can never have another drink again. And if I do, then it's kind of the game's over kind of thing. So, I hope Jade feels the same way, and that she won't break to just maybe have, I suppose, 10-15 minutes of kind of relaxation after a tough night with the kids or whatnot. So it is hard to kind of I don't know, like, enforce that and put that into people's minds. But for me, essentially, I know I can never have another drink again, so I don't do that. I'm away from the dependence now. So, I'm so far gone from that now, coming up for 5 years. And I know Jade is as well, that you don't need it. So the only thing that would drag you back down is the mental obsession and the fact that you think it's going to help a situation that you might be in. So I hope that the discussion that we had, and that Jade will use our other tools in the arsenal to combat that. And I'm pretty sure she won't go back to where she was, but it's just interesting to see that. And I think good for other people to hear that, someone that has got, Jade's not far behind me, so she's 4.5 years plus, that we do have moments of fragility, and it is such a, it's not just, right, we've done a year or 2 years, right, that's it, we're sorted. It's not like that. It is a tough old game, and I think people need to remember that, okay, we're not doing the work every single day, but we are still aware that, we can't drink. And that's the kind of point that I want to make, that, I'm not fixed, I'll never be fixed, but as long as I don't drink, I'll be okay. And I know that's the same for Jade as well. So, yeah, everything's going well in my life. The weather's taken a turn for the wetness. We've got TT over here at the moment. It's just starting this week. It'll probably be done by the time this comes out. But it's a massive drinking culture over here. I'm not saying the island's a massive drinking culture, although there is the kind of drinking culture. But when TT's on, which is the tourist trophy motorbike racing, there's a lot of drinking goes on in the island, and that's part and parcel with big events and things like that. And I get that, but the fact that it's connected to motor vehicles, i.e. bikes, can be a bit mental and a bit dangerous. So I try to, I have to go on the roads for work and things like that, but I try to kind of steer clear of the roads as much as I can, as physically possible. I don't know if it's as bad as it used to be. I'm not really sure. I try and steer clear of it, if I'm honest. I know that the towns get a bit leery on the Friday and Saturdays nights, or through the weeks. But people are on holiday, so I'm not moaning. I'm not going to complain about it. I just know that people need to take a bit more care when they're out drinking and potentially going to ride a motorbike. So yeah, but don't get me wrong, there is a great buzz in the island, and I do love that. It's the start of the holiday season, so the island does come alive, and I do love that. So yeah, but I'm also off to see my friend Rob, who is turning 50 this weekend, and I'm off to Ely to go and visit him for the weekend, so looking forward to that. I might start doing these intros just before I post them. I was noticing that, yeah, by the time these episodes come out, the intro and the outro is kind of a bit dated by then, so I might start doing them just before I post them. But then it's not in the can. I don't know. We'll see how we go. I think, yeah, we're banging to season 2 now. So this is about the 3rd episode of season 2. So I hope people are still enjoying it. Remember to follow, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.